Welcome. My name is Alex De Ocampo. On behalf of the Filipino Worker Center, the Filipino Voter Empowerment Project, and all of tonight's sponsors and speakers, thank you for being here tonight. We're here to stand against the hate we saw in Atlanta with the tragic murder of Asian spa workers. The hate in the attacks of our seniors as they try to enjoy their retirement. The hate in the letters AAPI community members received in the mail that we all have seen in the press. The hate in the rhetoric that was used by the former president. The hate that many of us are experiencing in our daily lives. I walk my dogs in Mount Washington every night. These walks used to bring me peace. But recently, I've experienced negative behaviors from the people I consider neighbors. I was followed by someone who was suspicious of me. I was confronted by someone who said I was going to make them sick. I was told to go back where I came from. I was born in Los Angeles. This is my home. I was raised by a resilient Filipina who immigrated to this country to give my sisters and I a better life. We continue to be told that America is a melting pot and a land of opportunity, but we know the reality. The reality is a history of anti-Filipino laws, the Chinese Exclusion Acts, the Japanese internment during World War II. The reality is an uptick in hate crimes. The reality is seeing our communities blamed for COVID-19. The reality is bringing more trauma to our community. How many more lives need to be taken away from us? We're here tonight to say enough. We can no longer be silent and keep our heads down. Let's stand together and stop Asian hate. Before I introduce our next speaker, I want to quickly thank all the organizations who have sponsored tonight's vigil. You'll hear from some of these organizations in a moment, but all of them are standing with us, and this event would not be possible without them. First of all, we want to thank the Los Angeles Chinatown Corporation, who has graciously allowed us to use this historic space. Thank you for going above and beyond to make this happen and being so generous with your time and this location. Special thanks to Jason Fujimoto, to the Chinatown Business Improvement District. I'd also like to single out Assemblymember Wendy Carrillo and her staff. They originally reached out to us with this idea for this event. Thank you for your leadership, Assemblymember. Lastly, I'd like to recognize the sponsors of this event who have shown what solidarity looks like. Asian Americans Advancing Justice Los Angeles, Little Tokyo Service Center, Search to Involve Filipino Americans, Project by Project, A3PCon, Clergy and Laity United for Economic Justice, East-West Players, Carlos Bulasan Book Club, Karasen, Korean Immigrant Workers Alliance, Congressmember Jimmy Gomez, Chinese American Citizens Alliance Los Angeles, Chinese Historical Society of Southern California, Chinatown Service Center, Chinese American Museum of Los Angeles. A special thanks to Aquilina Soriano Versosa, George Yu, Richard Fire, and my brother from another mother, Marco Menigan. And now it's my honor to present our next speaker, representing the Chinese Historical Society of Southern California and the Chinese American Citizens Alliance of Los Angeles. Please welcome Eugene Moy. Thank you.
Thank you. We're all gathered here today at a historic place. This is the Los Angeles Chinatown Central Plaza, more than 80 years old. It's here because a group of Americans, Chinese Americans, organized to help relocate businesses who were being forced out of old Chinatown to make way for the development of Union Station. And that's not the first time that Chinese have been displaced over the years and have felt the ire of anti-Asian and anti-Chinese hate. Chinese migration has been part of a larger and deeper worldwide migration. The first Asians in America actually were in Mexico and South America and Central America. Many of those Asians were Chinese, Filipino, and Indian descent. Over the centuries, others came over time. When the Declaration of Independence in the US was passed and when the Constitution was adopted, a new group of Chinese immigrants arrived in the East Coast. In the mid-19th century, Chinese and migrants from all over the world, you know, this nation, of course, is made up of immigrants, came here for the gold rush and for economic opportunity. By the 1880s, however, anti-Chinese sentiment pushed the Congress to passing the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act, which restricted the flow of Chinese immigration for more than 60 years. But interestingly, in their place came many other migrants from Asia, from Japan, from the Philippines, from India, from South Asia. So we have to recognize that this region and this nation has really grown and developed as a result of migration from Asia. Today, we recognize the contributions of Chinese and Asian Pacific Islanders in science and technology, in business and education, in the arts, and in political life. And this year, you know, we're really proud to say we have some leadership in Washington, D.C. We have an API as our vice president. So APIs have been integral to the development of this nation. We fought in all of our wars, from the Civil War to World War I to World War II to the Korean to Vietnam to Iraq and to Afghanistan. Recently, the US Congress awarded a Congressional Gold Medal to Chinese American World War II veterans for fighting for our country. This followed the recognition of Japanese American veterans and Filipino American veterans in supporting our nation. So API leaders have really emerged in our national leadership. API's Asian Pacific Islanders have been part of America. We're part of the leadership of this country. Anti-Asian hate and violence is out of touch with reality. It's out of touch with reality. We have been and are a part of America. So that's it. I'd like to next introduce our next speaker, who is a commissioner for the Los Angeles City Board of Public Works. She's the first Filipina ever to serve in this role, and then she also previously served in the mayor's office and in the Obama administration, for that matter. So would you please welcome Jessica Calosa.
Hi, everyone. I don't think I heard you. Hi, everyone. Okay, that's so much better. I know there's a lot of energy here that we really want to capture in this moment because this is special, right? But good evening. My name is Jessica Calosa. I am a commissioner on the Board of Public Works in the city of Los Angeles. I am a proud public servant, but today I come to you as a proud Asian American, a proud Filipina American, a proud immigrant. And thank you. These affirmations are so important to say out loud. And I'm going to repeat that again, that these affirmations are so important to say out loud because too often we feel invisible. And so we really have to not only acknowledge our identity and our culture, but we really have to celebrate it. And that means saying it out loud. I'm just trying to take a moment here to fully appreciate this event and this vigil that Alex Diocampo, the Filipino Workers Center, so many Asian American organizations put together because we are in community this evening. And I also want to say how proud and thankful I am for every single person who's here today for being brave enough to come out in public in a time when we are being attacked in public. So I just want to first acknowledge how special that is. At the City of Los Angeles, Mayor Garcetti and so many of our elected leaders, especially our Asian American and Pacific Islander leaders, like Councilmember John Lee, Councilmember Nithya Raman, were not only quick to denounce the violence and the senseless attacks, not only in Atlanta a few weeks ago, but the attacks that have continued to happen in our own backyard, like what we've seen in Little Tokyo and in Koreatown, but they followed those denunciations with actual actions. And we know that without tangible actions, there can be no healing for any of our communities. And so I'm so excited to be part of a city family that's acting on this, and acting on this with policy, with resources, with partnerships with our community that we want to continue to build on. I'll just share a few of them that we have are working on. One, of course, that we know is that so many of the attacks on our communities happen in public spaces like this one. They happen on the streets, they happen in grocery stores, they happen in places where you should feel safe. So one of the things that we're looking at is, of course, our unarmed responses, the people in our city team who are already out and are our eyes and ears on the streets to make sure that they're trained and that they know. This is a very LA moment right now where I'm going to pause as this helicopter passes. Okay, I think I'm all clear. To make sure that we also look at our unarmed responses at the city, and that those are some of the strategies that we continue to address anti-Asian violence. Some of the things that we're also doing is partnering with our community organizations to make sure that we encourage reporting. We continue to share our stories because that is so important. We talked about how much underreporting there is in our communities, and that really starts with everyone here and being brave and encouraging each other to share our experiences that have happened to us, just like what Alex did earlier, because even though they may seem insignificant or they may seem small in that moment, like, oh, well, nothing else happened, these were just words. These words matter, and these words lead to violent attacks, and these words sometimes lead to the loss of life. And so we have to share our stories because that's our power, knowing that these are not isolated experiences, but they are shared experiences by so many people, and that we need to continue building on that solidarity. So I feel so heartened if y'all can just take a moment to pause and look to your left, and I want you to look to your right, and I want you to look behind you or in front of you. I just want you to take a look around this entire plaza at the diversity of people who are here today from many different backgrounds, all ages, different generations. And this is the kind of community building and solidarity building that we need and that it's going to take to really stop violence and attacks against not only Asian Americans, but so many communities who have faced violence and attacks. Our Latina brothers and sisters, the Muslim community, the Black community, the Sikh community, there's so many. And so I know together we can make that possible. So thank you so much. And now I'm really honored to introduce your next speaker. He is a Los Angeles native, born and raised in the San Gabriel Valley, who now resides in Chinatown. He is the executive director of the Chinese American Museum, Michael Trong. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There's a question I always ask, but I always dread to answer. How are you? How are you feeling? I often ask my friends and family that question, how are you? And I want to be the first to ask that, so I could get lost in their narrative, their emotions, and their thoughts, in hopes that they forget to ask me how I'm feeling. Because when I hear that question, I really don't know how to answer that. So I take the moment to really think about how I'm feeling, and I start to reflect on everything, and this overwhelming amount of emotions that I think that I get. And I think about where I should go to feel safe, where I should go to process it all. And like most people, home is where I feel safe. I live in Chinatown, up the hill, but that's not where I call home. Home is where my family is, my parents and my brothers and my sister, and that's in the San Gabriel Valley. But recently, I'm not able to see my family as much as I could. And when I do, it's between a doorway or a window. This pandemic has violated my sense of home. As I continue to read the stories and hear about all these events, I know that the home within my community has also been violated. So then I think about the lives that are lost during this increased anti-Asian hate. And I recognize the lives that are also lost in the 1871 Los Angeles Chinese Massacre and other massacres throughout history in our nation, Wyoming, Oregon, Washington, and other locations. And I recognize the Chinese who built the railroad, but also left for dead during other weird, unfortunate events. And the life of Vincent Chin and their families who were separated due to the Chinese Exclusion Act. And these are the stories that we share at the Chinese American Museum, the contributions of Chinese Americans, the triumphs, but also the racism and the violence acts that face our community historically. We share that with students, we share that to our, the educators, and to families who come into their museum. And I also try to share that story with my family. My family migrated to America in 1979 as refugees for the Vietnam War. As I started to learn about the Chinese American history in my 20s, I shared with my parents the importance of understanding how our lives in America has been shaped by previous generations of immigrants. My mom has a survivor mentality. As a family, we survived the Vietnam War, and we will continue to survive living in America. My dad has a different view. When he became a citizen, he forgot his name, Van, and decided to change it to Philip, a name that at first he couldn't spell. He had to figure out it's one I, one L, or two L's, and then he couldn't pronounce it. He used to pronounce it as this sandwich place that we know down the street, Philippe. And then when he talks about America, he is grateful to America, and he believes that it's a place that was one of the best decisions he made to come to the United States. And as he lives in the San Gabriel Valley, he sees America as this place of cultural acceptance. So I share these stories about what I learned about Chinese American history, and they listen, but they really don't understand it. And for a while, I thought it was okay. As a child of the immigrant, I take the burden of knowing my community history and understanding it so I could make sure that they feel safe and secure. As with many immigrant families, I often translate things for my parents, going to the doctor's office, talking to teacher-parent conferences and whatnot. So this is a way in my profession where I could translate how to navigate in American society. So I think about how I feel, and honestly, I don't know. Should I feel sad and tired for the fact that in my professional career, something I dedicate 15 years to, that I teach that we must know our history so it won't be repeated again, and I'm standing here today because it's being repeated? Are they first angry to know that this false sense of security that I provided for my family, it's all been taken away in the past year? I can't share how I'm feeling today, but I want to share what I want. I want my mom's strength in believing that whatever comes in front of us, we can overcome it. I want to know that America, that my dad still believes in, one that accepted him when he was forced out of his home country, a place where he felt that he belonged, and a place that provided him security. I want that for me, I want that for us, and I want that for this nation, now and forever. Thank you. And now, it is my honor to introduce a man who has long served in this area, the Congressman representing California 34th District, Representative Jimmy Gomez, to say a few words. Thank you.
Good evening. So I've always been proud to represent the 34th Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives because it is diverse, it is progressive, it was inclusive. I represent the communities of not only Chinatown, but also of Little Tokyo, historic Filipino town, and Koreatown. I represent one of the best districts in the entire country because of its diversity. It's sad that we have to be here on this occasion, but it's something that has to happen. And that's because these attacks against the Asian American community are not new. There are a long string of attacks against immigrants and people that look different than what people believe is an American. Blue-eyed, blonde hair. But these attacks have continued year after year, and nothing has been done. And then when we had the election of Donald Trump, he flamed that hate, that spread, that continued to infect, continue to spread, and continue to cause violence against our communities. Everything from El Paso, Texas, where Mexican Americans were shot in a Walmart, to Atlanta just a week ago. It's the same thread of hate that has existed in this country for over 200 years. But this country is a special place because it's supposed to be the fact that it doesn't matter where you're from, the color of your skin, or the God you worship, you have a place here in the United States of America. And I want to tell you that this is a fight for that idea. You know, I wish that hate stopped in November when Donald Trump lost his reelection, but it didn't. It spread into 2021 with the insurrection at the state capitol. Still that same thread of hate that has infected this country. And it is that hate that we have to defeat. But we can do that if we all stick together, if we stand united. I always believed one thing. I am my brothers and sisters' keepers, right? We are our brothers and sisters' keepers. If something happens to the Korean community, it matters to me. If something happens to the Filipino community, it matters to me, right? If anything happens to the Thai community or the Chinese community, Japanese community, or the LGBTQ community, it matters to me, right? And it should always matter to every one of us when there's attack on any of us. And that's how we end this thread of hate that has been in our history for far too long. So I want to let you know that activism matters. Speaking up matters. Sharing your history matters. Because if they can wipe you off out of the history books, then they can wipe you out of this country. So we need to share those stories. We need to make our voices heard. And we need to demand our place, not only in politics or in the boardrooms, but also in media and news, where a lot of our stories are told. Because when we're not seen and people don't see us, every single one of us, it's easier for them to attack us. So I'm here to stand with every single one of you, and Congress is going to act. We have the No Hate Act that Judy Chu is championing in Congress to start pushing back on the Asian attacks that we've been seeing. We have another piece of legislation that deals with the fact that they always try to, the bunch of folks try to use different communities as scapegoats. And the Asian community has been used as a scapegoat because of COVID-19. And it's a new bill that will be introduced to make any crime that's because of COVID-19 punishable. So I want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for speaking up. And I want to say that you have a friend in my office, and we're going to keep fighting every single day. And with that, I want to invite the next speaker. And I want to say that Chinatown is what it is today because of its people and the community that are here. A community that since 1971 has been served by one of the largest health and human services organizations in Southern California, the Chinese Service Center. I'm proud to bring up to the stage the Chief Executive Officer of the Chinatown Service Center, Peter Ng.
Sorry, it's me again. So once again, I just want to emphasize social distancing, and if you do need any masks or any type of other PPE, let us know. We just come over here and we'll gladly give it to you. Also, we're going to plug, we just want to thank Under One Groove Entertainment, Lowell right here, who's donated his services. And I just want to highlight the amazing work that he's been doing. He's worked with us day in and day out, so we want to just say thank you. And also, when this is done, we do want to make a plug to feel free and look around, support some of these local businesses because they need your support and your love. So thank you.
Wow, what an honor. Thank you for a nice introduction, Congressman Gomez. It's always nice to hear Chinatown. I am also, like many of you, an immigrant. Actually, I am at least the fourth generation. Myself, my father, my grandfather, and my great-grandfather. Why is that? They all were born in China, but they came here when they were either at the teenager age or very young, like a child. Until my son and my daughters, they were born here. They are Americans. Now, I still remember last year in February 13, 2020, we held a press conference at the Los Angeles County, right there by Grand Park. What is the press conference for? It's for COVID-related bashing on Asian. Now that was then bashing. Not many people consider that as a serious crime. We just call out to everyone, and please calm down, do not do bashing because COVID is not really caused by Asian or Chinese. And look what happened. It escalated. Over the years, many families got hit by the COVID. Many families lost their loved ones. However, is this really the fault of an Asian flu or Chinese COVID? No, it's not. It is how we deal with the pandemic because Chinatown Service Center, where I work, is a clinic. We understand there are people who do not wear a face mask. There are people who do not follow the safety rule, and that's what happens. But it turns out they blame it on the Asians. They blame it on China. This is wrong. Now everyone knows that the pandemic is coming down now, much less case, but the crime rate will go up. In the last couple of weeks, several tragedies happened. It shouldn't happen. That's why I'm very happy that I see all of you are here. We have a movement. This thing has to stop. the hatred towards Asian has to stop. I'm so happy to hear about Congressman Gomez and our Congress, the lawmakers are doing something to push the law so that anyone that commit this crime will be punished, and they should be. At the same token, let's be compassionate, let's treat each other like a brotherhood, because we all live in the same earth. We are all same human race. There's no color among us. So please, tell among each other, just share the love. Thank you. So I mentioned some tragedy, especially the one that, the terrible shooting in Atlanta. One of the organizations that has taken the lead to help families there has been Asian American Advancing Justice. And here representing AAJ in Los Angeles, please welcome the Vice President of Development and Communication, Eileen Louie.
Hello, everyone. So before I start, I have to give a shout out to the store behind me because this is my family store. KG Louie is the grandfather of my husband. Uncle Bill is here working the store. My father-in-law is here. My kids are here. I spend a lot of time here, usually for community celebrations, the Chinatown, the Chinese New Year parade, summer nights festivals. It is very odd to me to be standing here in a work capacity, especially for an event that is rooted in such pain. But I thank you all so much for being here today. I have the tremendous privilege to work at a community-based organization that is focused on the needs and the concerns of the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities. I work alongside amazing advocates who spend their days providing advice, information, who are community advocates, and oftentimes we are their voice. And I have to tell you, this last year has been very rough. We've seen countless families fall into the depths of poverty, crushed by the pandemic that is ongoing. We've seen people murdered in the streets by officers whose job it is to protect us. But the events of Atlanta last week, I have to tell you, for many of us, we are beyond sad. We are beyond angry and frustrated. We feel broken. And I'm really glad to be with you today because this is an incredibly healing space. The opportunity to be with you, to comfort each other, to support one another, to lift each other up. It's an incredible reminder to me that the love and the care that we have for each other and our communities is stronger than the hate that people want to throw at us. I can't tell you what it means to me to see you all here and how amazing it is for my spirit. And I thank you for that. So as I stand here and receive all this great energy from all of you, I feel that it's important for me to lift up our brothers and sisters in Atlanta, and in particular, our sister organization, Advancing Justice Atlanta, and their network of really amazing API community advocates and allies, because they're doing the hard work right now. They're the ones with the families, helping them to grieve, trying to console them, trying to help them understand and find purpose in the senseless murder of their loved ones. So I hope that you all keep them in your thoughts, because there's a lot of hurt and pain there right now. And I wish that I could say that this would be the last time, that together we could make sure that this never happened again. But in my heart, I just don't believe that that's true. I think that this fight is a long one. But I do think that we can win. I think that we can end the racism, the hate that continues to divide us, that continues to oppress so many of us. Together, we can do it. It'll take a long time, though. And I, for one, am very committed to this fight, and I am incredibly grateful to be with you today because I know you're in there with us. So thank you. Thank you so very much. You know, we have seen so many elected officials who have been swift to stand in support of our communities. And amongst those is Assembly Member for the 51st District, Wendy Correa. And she, in fact, is one of the driving forces for bringing us all together here today. So it is my great honor to introduce her right now, Assembly Member Wendy Correa.
Hi, it's me again. I know you keep seeing me. I appear, I reappear. Apologies. Just one quick housekeeping. Someone left their card, and I believe it's Ryan T. Waddles. Did anyone? They just dropped a credit card, and we just want to make sure you get your credit card back. Second is we actually. The Assembly member, we're so excited to have her speak soon, but we wanted to really plug real quick Lillian Lim, and she's going to talk a little bit about how to report a hate crime. And if we could have Lillian come up here real quick. Oh, Lillian's coming up. But these are going to be very handy. We're going to be able to pass these out because I think this is really important that we take the moment to realize to our Asian American community, if you are a victim of a hate crime, we want to be able to give you the information that's needed to report a hate crime. So if we could have Lillian Lim come up real quick and her amazing team.
All right, hello. Hi, my name's Lillian. I'm here with Cheryl, Judy, and Diana. And we're here to help Esther Lim, who is the creator of Hate Crime Book. She put together this pamphlet, and it basically comprises of several pages to help those who really can't speak English and are really unaware of all the resources that are here for them. So there's pages here that will list out and describe what is a hate crime. Actually, I'll read out a few. Prevention tips. How to report a hate crime. Know your rights. So let's see. One other list that shows descriptions of an incident. So it'll give you guys examples of what type of information to write down if and when something happens to you or if and when you witness it. So there are copies of this in several different languages. We have Mandarin, we have Thai. What else do we have?
Vietnamese, Spanish.
We have Vietnamese, Spanish, Japanese, Korean. So if you'd like more information about this, please feel free to come find us. We have several copies with us.
We don't have everything on hand, but you can also go to the website.
We don't have everything on hand, but you can always go to the website, hatecrimebook.com, and the Instagram handle is also the same title. So I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for kind of showing support and solidarity, and let's continue to just fight against all the hate that goes on in this world. Thank you.
So Lillian, just real quick, if you could come back here. Are you going to be giving this out, right? Do you have copies for individuals?
We have a few copies in Chinese, Korean, and Japanese.
Okay, so if you all want to pick up where are you going to be? You're going to be right over there?
Yeah, right over there.
Okay, she's going to be right there close to Burger Lord, so feel free to get a pamphlet. To all my API brothers and sisters, it's very important that you utilize this pamphlet and you talk to your community about reporting a hate crime. So thank you very much, and thank you for being here. Hello, everyone. It's me again. So we have a distinguished guest that's going to be here. It is Los Angeles City Council member Kevin De Leon, and I believe he is just walking around the corner right now, and there he is. Kevin was the former Senate Pro Tem of the California State Senate, and now he is a city council member. I tease him a lot because he's of Mexican and Chinese descent. And sometimes I tease him and I say, Kevin, remember, you are half Chinese and you are now here in Chinatown. And now it is your turn to speak to our community. So.
How are we doing today? I said, how are we doing today? I want to say to each and every one of you, it's indeed an honor to have an opportunity to share just a few words. It's an honor to be here with my friends and my colleagues here, my good friend Jimmy Gomez, member of Congress who fights for us each and every single day, my very good friend Frankie Torres here, who has been working with SEIU in the trenches, working for better conditions for our working men and women. We also have here our community college board member here, Mike Fong over there. Mike Fong, thank you very much, brother. And in a few moments, we're going to have my colleague, my former colleague from the California State Legislature, the State Assembly, come up here and share a few words with each and every one of you. But let's be frank with each other, because racism and hatred is nothing new to our great state of California. In fact, the Chinese Exclusion Act was passed in the state of California before it was in Washington, D.C. The very red carpet that I had the honor to preside over as the first person of color, first Latino, and first Asian American to ever be president of our California State Senate. On that green carpet, or I should say that red carpet, as well as the green carpet of the Assembly, is where they passed the Chinese Exclusion Act. And when I was in the legislature, I wrote the bill that was the joint author of ACR 42, which was the first official apology from any government in the United States of America to Chinese Americans due to the Chinese Exclusion Act. And that measure was duplicated at the federal level with our Congresswoman Judy Chu and then Congressman Mike Honda. Executive Order 9066. Now, in California, we have 3 Japantowns: San Francisco, San Jose, and our very own Little Tokyo. Now, Boyle Heights, which historically was a Ashkenazi Jewish enclave, increasingly became a Japanese-American neighborhood, and eventually a Latino neighborhood. Back during World War II, with FDR as president, when they initiated the Executive Order 9066, they took all Asian Americans, and specifically Japanese Americans, because of the color of their skin, because of their origin, because of the language that they speak, and they interned them in Manzanar and other camps throughout the United States of America, stripping them of everything, of their culture, their language, their community, their neighborhoods, their livelihoods. So racism and hatred and division is nothing new in our great state of California, and surely nothing new in the great city of Los Angeles. But we know as Angelinos, we know as Californians and as Americans, we know as Asian Americans, I as a Latino, an Asian American with family origins from Guangzhou, China, that when we come together, when we stand up for each other, when we back each other up, when we defend each other, that's when we become a society that's united by one. That's when we become a society that's united by all the different colors of the skin, all the different colors, all the languages that we speak, because we're all human beings that deserve dignity and respect. So regardless of who you are, and where you come from, the color of your skin and who you love and the God you pray to. Regardless of your legal status, we all deserve the respect and dignity as human beings. And we should never, ever have to fear whether you're an Angelino or whether you're a tourist in Los Angeles. Fear that someone is going to strike us down with visceral, violent vitriol, cutting us down with mean-spirited, pernicious words, or even worse, be a victim of physical violence or murder. And time again, we've seen this happen against people of color, and the cyclical calendar that always manifests itself, its rear ugly head, the violence against Asian Americans, whether you're Chinese, whether you're Filipino, whether you're Thai, Malaysian, Indonesian, doesn't make a difference. And that's why we all stand up with each other. And that's why I say to my Asian American and my Asian Pacific Islander sisters and brothers, that if you want us to stand behind you, to back you up, we will do that. If you want us to stand next to you, locked in arms in solidarity, we will do that. And if you want us to stand in front of you to bear the brunt of the verbal, violent, visceral barrage of words or the physical blows, we will do that because we love each other and we care for each other. That's a society that we want to live in. That's a society where we want our children to grow up in, regardless of who you are, regardless of the color of your skin, regardless of the language you speak, regardless of your income level. We stand up for each other. We defend each other. We back each other up. And that's what we're going to do today. That's what we're going to do tomorrow. That's what we're going to do forever. Thank you very much, everybody. Gracias. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce a very good friend, a fighter, a champion, a woman of color, first woman Salvadorian to ever be elected to the California State Legislature, who came here as an undocumented immigrant herself with her family, who grew up in Los Angeles and East LA, City Terrace, as well as Ball Heights, who geographically and politically and culturally represents our neighborhood here in Chinatown. I represented Chinatown in the State Assembly, in the State Senate. Now my sister has the honor to represent all of Chinatown in the California State Assembly. She's your representative. She's your sharp tip of the spear in Sacramento to make sure that we fight against all forms of violence. Let's give it up for our Assemblywoman, Wendy Carrillo. Wendy.
Got to take the council member everywhere we go and hype us all up. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Wendy Carrillo, and I proudly represent this community in Northeast LA and East Los Angeles in your California State Assembly in the 51st Assembly District. I want to acknowledge and thank the Tonga people whose lands we now gather on. And I want to make a recognition for the additional electeds that are here today. The Mayor of Almonte, Jessica Anacona, who's here, as well as our newly elected City Councilwoman representing City Council District 14, Councilwoman Nithya Rahman is here. And I want to thank the grassroots, nonprofit, business, art, and faith leaders from the community and from our diverse Asian American and Pacific Islander communities who agreed to work with me and other electeds in order to make this evening's vigil reality, and for all the concurrent events that have taken place across the city and across our county. When I first came to the United States, I was 5 years old. My family was fleeing the Civil War in El Salvador. We made home, just a small little home in Boyle Heights and City Terrace, where I grew up. My father has worked in Chinatown since he was maybe about 19 years old, as a dishwasher and a cook at the Wong Kok restaurant just a few blocks from here. He's now a supervisor with Clean and Green, and he drives the little truck that cleans the streets of Chinatown. My father loves this community. There is I'm totally gonna date myself, but a photo of a little young Wendy, maybe 1988, 1989, right at that fountain, right there, celebrating Lunar New Year. This community is a part of who we are. Every year, since we arrived to the United States, to Los Angeles, my sisters and I, and my sisters are here today, have gotten a cake from the Phoenix Bakery. That cake was more than just a cake. That cake symbolized our community. It symbolized the intersectionality of who we are. It was a promise of America that was very different from what we had experienced when we fled as we started a completely new life here in Los Angeles. When I was a little girl, my father would bring us to Chinatown, as I mentioned, and we would throw pennies at the fountains, and we would be in awe of all the celebrations. And like many immigrant families, we did not arrive with wealth or social standing, and the American dream seemed out of reach. But Chinatown and her people made LA and California home. Chinatown and her people have a special place in my heart. And I share this because I want you to know that we feel the pain of this moment deeply. Hate has no home here. My father is a Mexican immigrant from Zacatecas who called me and said in Spanish, "Mija, tenemos que hacer algo." We have to do something. That's the power of our community. Denouncing and stopping anti-AAPI hate and violence is everyone's responsibility. And it is our responsibility as a community to embrace together. That is why we are seeing demonstrations and solidarity from everyone across our city. Larry Idalong made it clear when he stated, in the Constitution it says that everybody has equal rights and justice, but we have to make it to come back to that. That is why unity means keeping the promise of a California for all without allowing anyone to add any asterisks or qualifiers or exceptions. Yuri Kochiyama reminded us that we are all a part of one another and tomorrow's world is ours to build. That's why healing means making words like dignity and safety tangible and real for victims of scapegoating and bullying and harassment, and for all the injuries and trauma that have harmed thousands of AAPI community members in less than a year's time. There is scripture about finding hope in a time of mourning that reads, "I think of you, you are my help. I sing in the shadow of your wings." Every soul taken from us in Atlanta is an angel calling upon us to lift one another and raise the consciousness of our neighborhoods across our nation. Our communities, cultures, histories, and traditions are beautiful and resilient because they are diverse. Ours is a more golden state, and the stars of the American flag shine brighter across the United States when we celebrate our differences and come together in intersectional, interwoven ways until our solidarity makes us an inseparable fabric with as many threads and yarns and textures and colors as there are people. In the words of Grace Lee Boggs, we don't choose the times we live in, but we choose who we want to be. Our challenge is to deepen our bonds and embrace our limitless capacity to love, serve, and create the world anew for and with each other. Let us love and serve their memory and create for all here and for all to come. Now, I am a hopeless romantic, and there is a love letter that John Adams wrote to his wife Abigail in the founding of this nation when he was in France asking for funds for the Revolutionary War. And in this letter, he writes, "The gardens of Versailles are beautiful, and I wish that I had all the time to share them with you. But I must get back to work, and I must go study politics and war so that our children have the liberty to study mathematics and science, so that their children have a right to study art and music." Friends, that is the promise of America. It is the promise that we get to keep, that no matter where you come from, what you look like, what language you speak, or what your legal status is, This nation belongs to all of us, not just a few. And we must stand together in solidarity to protect and love one another. I know that the candles are being passed, and I want to thank the young woman who brought the poster with the names, because that is who we are honoring this evening. And I just want to read the names really quickly. In memory of Sue Shung Park, Hwan Yu Grant, Sue Cha Kim, Young R. Yu, Delana Ashley Yuam, Paul Andre Michaels, Xiangji Tan, and Dong Yu Feng. This is a moment of solemn, where we must embrace and love each other and remember that there is no hate in our world that we will ever tolerate. Now, I want to bring up my good friend, Ms. Julie Chang, who is a resident of Chinatown, who I've had the pleasure of knowing for many years, one of the most powerful labor leaders, AAPI labor leaders in the labor movement with SEIU 2015. I want to invite her to come up and light the candle with me before we begin the introduction of Reverend David Farley, who would give us the prayer before we get started. Julie, come on up. And as we begin the lighting of the candles, please allow me to introduce the person who will be leading this vigil and remembrance. We are honored to have with us tonight a reverend with a long history of activism. Reverend David Farley is the Director of Justice and Compassion Ministries for the California Pacific Conference of the United Methodist Church. He is a recipient of the Methodist Federation of Social Action's Mildred Hutchinson Award as a Giant of Justice. We are honored to have him lead us in a reflection and prayer this evening. Reverend?
I think what I want to say is amen. Amen. What a powerful spiritual message that has been delivered here. I also, because we are about to engage in drawing upon our spiritual resources and all that is present, available to each one of us to do that, I also want to acknowledge that we are on Tongva land. And that there is spiritual presence there, as well as history, and so I acknowledge that. And I also want to celebrate the fact that we are gathering in the Queen of Angels' heart here, the Queen of Angels' broken heart, certainly when we read passages of lamentation from various scriptural traditions, we are mindful that God's heart breaks at times, but it breaks open, and out of that broken heart flows a healing spirit that's also can be an angry spirit as well. Angry in the prophetic sense of being the spirit that moves the people to claim their dignity and their rights and to stand against evil. I'm here representing a diverse communities of faith throughout this region. And one thing we ought to unite against is hate, you think, right? Amen? So I am very grateful for this opportunity to come and on behalf of that network of faith communities that I represent, to state clearly our prayerful, active solidarity with the AAPI family, community, our siblings, our co-workers in the cause of justice and peace. I also want to share one other thing. I also been asked to represent my bishop, Bishop Grant Hagiya of the United Methodist Church, who knows from an early age personally the reality of racial hate. And I just wanted to lift up a statement that he made. Our nation and the world must come to a true reckoning. Any form of racial or misogynist violence and hate must be stopped. We can talk about it all we want. We can analyze and dissect it ad infinitum. We can do what I'm doing and write endless diatribes against it, but the fact remains, unless we do something tangible to stop it, it will continue unabated. The Bible says in the book of Lamentations, God's steadfast love never ceases, but also that God's mercies are new every morning. And I guess one of the prayers that I have for us all is that we would wake each morning and face each day with a deep awareness of the presence of the God or the Spirit or the spiritual reality that we know, that presence with us to give us strength and wisdom and a deep sense of compassion for our siblings in the struggle. God bless your families. Looks like it's getting dark. It's time to be the light. Are we ready to be the light? Will you open your hearts and minds in a spirit of meditation and prayer? O boundless God, God of all peoples and each child born everywhere, God of all creation and each creature great and small, you who have created this world without borders for all of us to share, you who has created each one of us in your image and whose spirit is present with all who struggle for justice. We pray for our AAPI siblings and all those whose lives have been damaged or lost or attacked or abused by acts of racist or misogynist violence. Be, O God, a source of strength and comfort for their families. Continue to bless those gathered here with courage in the face of the challenges ahead, faith in the justice of their cause, guidance and wisdom in the steps they take, and confidence in their ultimate victory, your ultimate victory, our ultimate victory over hate. Bless each one here, our families, and make every one of us a blessing to our neighbors. In the name of all that's sacred, we pray, amen. Let us now be mindful of those we've lost, those who are mourning, those who are wounded, those who are looking for allies and partners in the struggle, and those that just need our prayerful support as we join in this time of meditation and prayer. Let us open our eyes and see the light among us and around us and with us. We wanted to leave you with some hope and inspiration this evening. That's why we are closing the vigil with an original poem from Allison De La Cruz, a theater artist, facilitator, and producer in Los Angeles, representing the famed East-West Players Theater Group. To introduce Allison and close our evening, please welcome also from the East-West Players, Jade Kagalawan. Jade?
Thank you. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Jade Kagalawan, and I'm the Arts Education and Professional Enrichment Programs Manager for East-West Players. I am also a proud Filipino American and a proud child of immigrants. When the news came out of the 8 people who were murdered in the hands of a white supremacist, I was overwhelmed with emotion. I felt anger, grief, sadness, but the one that came out to me most clearly was unfortunately shame. Growing up, I didn't like being Asian. I was made to feel that I should be ashamed of who I was. I made attempts to even try to westernize myself until I found the community that is East-West Players. Because of this community, I was able to unapologetically be myself, and it's because of them that I have the privilege to be in this space and to be up here and share and connect with you all. And as I stand here before you, I'm reminded that I cannot hide and I will not be ashamed. We, as a community, must remember that we cannot hide and will not be ashamed. For over 55 years, East-West Players has sought to challenge the stereotypical narrative of what it means to be Asian and Asian American. It was founded as a way for Asian Americans to vibrantly, vitally, and urgently tell our stories, shredding 2D caricatures of us along the way. We will continue to do this work. We will continue to tell these stories until we can all leave our homes and walk down the street without fear or trepidation, but joy. In times like these, we must check in on each other. We must watch out for each other. We must be allies to all communities of color, not just our own, as we collectively work towards liberation. But we must also take whatever time we need to cycle through our grief, sadness, anger, frustration, and journey towards action. Art has been instrumental for us all to be able to heal and to learn more about ourselves and the world around us. So delivering this spoken word piece, I would like to introduce to you one of my first friends in the East-West Players community, Allison De La Cruz.
Good evening. Can I ask everybody just make sure your feet are planted, your knees are bent, you all been standing for a minute, and go ahead and just take a breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Part of what has inspired me tonight is that this is a place for us to continue to reclaim safety. And so I ask you one more time, can I ask you to breathe in safety, reconnect to that place, connect to this earth that we stand on, and go ahead and take one more big breath in and out. And on your next individual breath, I ask that you honor this land and the first people who were here, the Tongva, the Tataviam, and the Chumash, the people who were first here and continue to be here. Let us breathe in our gratitude for this land and for this place, that we can actually gather today and actually have this conversation and this connection. Breathe in. Thank you for gathering to hold vigil, to hold space, to hold this light in your hand. Whether you have a physical candle or not, your light is there to honor those who have fallen to hate. Thank you for gathering for those who want to be here and actually got to show up. And thank you for gathering for those in our communities who wanted to be here, who need to be here, but cannot be here. And can I ask you to repeat after me, who makes community safe? We do. Who makes community safer? And that is what I want to hold on to today. I make a community, you make a community, we make community together, and together we make our communities safer. Because I see you, community. I feel you, community. And I am holding you so tight, even though my arms are open right now. And it makes me wonder, if you could hug up on your favorite auntie or uncle, you know, the one who makes you feel seen? If you could hug up on your Lola or your grandpa, you know, the one who makes you feel loved? Or that godparent or that elder who makes you feel heard? Or that parent or that sibling or that friend or anyone with their physical act of their arms around you bringing you safety? Or their service acts of love and support, because we don't always hug each other. We don't always say, I love you, but I'll make you a meal. I'll make sure your laundry's done. I will make sure that the kids get to school on time, because my love language is service. And so I want you to imagine that person for you wrapping their arms around you, or their physical acts to show you that you are safe and that you are loved. I want to imagine that we can extend those hugging arms, those loving arms, to not just wrap around ourselves, but to hold space for this whole place and this whole city and this whole county called Los Angeles. Can we imagine every Asian American, Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian, South Asian, and Southeast Asian American being wrapped in the love of our aunties and our uncles and our lolas and our grandpas and our elders and our godparents, just because that's what we need today? Could we imagine that we could wrap this love and extend it out beyond Los Angeles for those who need to be held right now, for victims and their families, for those who have been able to come forward and report, and for those who have just been able to tell that one truth to one person? Can we hold and wrap in our arms of love for the people who cannot report these moments and these incidences of anti-Asian hate and violence? Can we wrap our arms and our love around them and give them the light that they need right now? Because as community, we can wrap ourselves and each other in the knowledge and the history that these things happen not just because of the intersections of racism and sexism and classism and ableism and heterosexism and nationalism, but that this happened because we don't see each other. And I'm sorry, but I refuse. My body won't even let me say it. I refuse to accept that we are silent and this is our fault. I am not silent. I have been telling my story from the minute I was born. And I am descended from elders who spoke before me. And maybe you don't speak their tongue, but that doesn't mean we didn't have stuff to say. And that doesn't mean we haven't been here. And if you don't know, go ask somebody, go teach yourself, go find that link. Because I am not your professor. I'm trying to live my life and do what I say I want to do, and let us be in this world the change that we want to be. Let us continue to offer our ongoing contributions to this place and see ourselves on purpose in community, not just with each other, but with Black and African American community, with Latinx community, with indigenous community, and with anybody who you may not know what they are. I get that all the time. What are you? Does it matter? It does not. Thank you. And so here in this moment, let us remember that we are not alone. That here on this land, on the land of the Tongva, the Tataviam, and the Chumash, here in this place known as Chinatown, here in this place known as Los Angeles, here in this place known as California, and thoroughly throughout the entire Turtle Island, AKA the United States of America, let us remember and extend this love and this hug all the way to Atlanta, all the way to New York, all the way to Florida, all the way to Alaska, all the way to Hawaii, all the way to San Diego and the border and to Texas, to every single place that we need to send that love to. So let us offer love. Let us offer healing. For those of us who have it right now to give, I am ready to accept it. Let us offer comfort and actual deep intersectional listening and intentional listening for those of you who have the capacity to do it. Because some of us are tired right now. Let us offer energy and focus on the next steps of what to do for those of us who can do that right now. Because every day we can choose. We can continue to choose to be in community with each other. Not just for this vigil, not just for that rally, not just for this next period of time that it feels precious and important because it just happened. But let us choose every day to see each other as community when we're looking at frontliners who are helping us get the things that we need, when we witness the educators who are helping our young people, and when we go into the shops of our moms and pops, no matter where they are from. Let us see each other in community. Let us nurture their dreams because they are our dreams. And we can choose to even hear the person on the phone trying to help us as somebody we could be in community with. And so I invite you that this might be the biggest act you've ever done. This is your first thing. Awesome. Welcome. But I also want to tell you there are lots of places that are looking for somebody who wants to make a different kind of difference. And you get to decide and choose that adventure of how you want to extend this moment into action and not just holding this candle of light, which is important. But what happens if this light becomes a torch? So I invite you to find a place where you can ignite a torch, where you can take action, and you can help us heal. You can get involved and help us decide how to solve some of these challenges that create opportunities for us to point at each other like us and them, and not like all of us. So I say thank you for showing up today to this vigil. Thank you for holding space. Thank you for thinking about all of the things that we have to just to even gather in this square right now. And so all I want to ask one more time is who makes community safe? And who makes community? We do. And I continue to look forward to building community with you. And I invite you to hold this light as safely as you can. And I invite you to consider before you blow out this light as we end this vigil, what is the next thing you are willing to do in order to make someone else feel safer? Even if that someone else is yourself. What is your next good thing that you want to do? Yes, there are many ways to do it. And I invite you to meet many of the orgs here to figure that out. And so I find myself in this moment, grounded in my breath, and I ask you to think about who is the person who you imagined wrapping their arms around you to give you love, and make you feel safe? And who will you be that person to? Who do you make safe? And as poetically awkward as I feel like this is, I want to say that's what this is. It's going to be awkward. It's not going to be poetic. And so I leave you in this moment asking you to help me finish this poem by thinking and looking at your light. And as you blow out your candle, can I invite you to say one thing you're going to do next to keep this work going? Thank you so much for being here and for showing up for all of us and for each other. And now I invite you to take one more big breath in. And with your intention, blow out your light. Write that play. Thank you all so much for being here.